Okay, we're going to keep some normalcy going as much as we can, even though we are not meeting at the school. You know what time it is. It's time to prepare for your test. So get your trash can ready, get your siblings around, and let's have a review game day. So how this is going to work is I'm going to flip through the PowerPoint that you have the notes from, and I will ask questions based off of the PowerPoint just like I would in class for a review game. So you can get your family together, get ready for the review game. So here we go. Civil War time. All right, first question. Who was the president of the Confederate States of America? Answer is this guy up top here, Jefferson Davis. Oh, by the way, you might want to pause before I give the answer for each. Here's another question for you. What is the name of the states in light blue, such as Missouri, Kentucky, and Maryland? And why are they those colors? As you can tell from the map, they are known as border states that did not secede but yet had slaves. So border states that did not secede but yet had slaves. Missouri, of course, being one of the most notorious of all those states. Next question would be, what was the name of the military outpost that the Confederates took over in South Carolina that began the Civil War? Answer, Fort Sumter. Fort Sumter. Another question for you. In addition to Lincoln calling for troops, later in the war, what will Lincoln do in order to bring more troops into the side of the Union? What will he do to bring more troops onto the side of the Union later on in the Civil War? Answer, he will allow African Americans to fight. He will allow contraband, which is also runaway African Americans, and he will initiate the first draft in the United States. Here we go, some more questions that we could go through. Of course, the review questions from quizzes, those are always good ones. What was the first state to secede? Answer that one, South Carolina, of course. What was the final event that caused the South, and specifically South Carolina, to secede? That was the election of 1860, specifically the election of Abraham Lincoln. Remember, they'd seen the pattern in which the United States government was more pro-North, pro-abolition, and the removal of slavery. So now all of a sudden they're saying, Abraham Lincoln's president, we're out here. What does secede mean? Hopefully you know that one from last unit. Secede means to get rid of. Okay, then here's one for you. What was some of the strengths that the Confederate states or the Southern states had in relationship to the Civil War? Of course, we know the answer to that is passion and fear. They had a defensive position. Remember, they're not trying to go on the offensive. They're not trying to take over the North. They're simply trying to leave. They're trying to leave the United States of America. They have a lot of agricultural resources, which we'll talk about in the next question, or the next two questions. And then wilderness and swamps, so things that would act as a natural border and natural defense from the Union invasion. Because remember, troops are still, for the most part, walking from point A to point B, from battle to battle. Okay, the follow-up question then, a similar vein, would be, what is the strengths of the North as they enter into the Civil War? Of course, that is industry and manufacturing. They already have money. They're not having to print new money. They already have an established government, unlike the Confederacy, who's having to fight a war, print money, grow their economy, and establish a government all at the same time. That's very difficult to do. So the Union has that upper hand. They already have an established government. And they have natural resources that are going to be great for the production of weapons such as iron, using coal for the steam-powered factories, and then wheat for food. They have the railroad to get from point A to point B, move troops, move weapons, move resources around. Okay, promised you we'd go back to this agricultural resources piece. What was the name of the game plan that Jefferson Davis, President of the Confederacy, had to utilize the agricultural resources of the South to gain European support during the Civil War? What was Jefferson Davis's plan called, in which he tried to use agricultural resources to gain European support? Answer: cotton diplomacy. And yes, it did fail. Britain says, nah, we're not going to get into a war with you guys. We've done that before in the War of 1812 and the American Revolutionary War. We're not going to do that again. Okay, Battle of Bull Run, first major battle. That'd been a good question. Okay, here's one for you. Who was the general that the Union had who would finally bring about success for the Union? Answer is this guy right here, Ulysses S. Grant. Another question, who are the previous two generals prior to Grant? Who had Abraham Lincoln elected as general of the Union Army prior to Grant? Answer is General McDowell and General McClellan. Here we go. The first major battle of the Civil War. Let's see if you were paying attention to the PowerPoint that just went by a couple slides earlier. What was the result and what was the name of the first major battle of the Civil War? Not first battle, but the first major battle in which you have the two sides, the Union and the Confederate troops colliding. Once again, going backwards, it was the Battle of Bull Run. Another. What is an ironclad? What is an ironclad? Remember, an ironclad is simply a naval ship that has been retrofitted with sheet metal, specifically iron plates, 4+ inches thick, that would help protect the ship against cannon fire. Another one is, why did the South create the ironclads? What was the purpose of creating ironclads? It was to break through the northern blockade that they'd set up. Remember, these wooden ships that you see in this bottom right-hand picture are no match for an impermeable naval vessel with cannons that can just hit these wooden ships at will and not sink. Okay, what was the purpose of the Emancipation Proclamation? Remember, the purpose of the Emancipation Proclamation was that Abraham Lincoln would set the precedent of freeing the slaves during the Civil War time frame. So he's freeing the slaves. Now remember, it has very little immediate effect because the Confederate States are no longer a part of the United States. So Abraham Lincoln, being the president of the United States, really didn't have any control over them because they'd already left. But it does show that precedence that, hey, once the Union wins the Civil War, slavery will officially end. What are contraband soldiers? Contraband soldiers. You got it. African American troops who were quite often runaway slaves who will then fight on the side of the Union. What is habeas corpus? What is habeas corpus? Remember, that is a constitutional right that you and I enjoy. That constitutional right says that we cannot be unlawfully imprisoned. When was the draft first instated in the United States? When was the draft first used, I should say, in the United States? When was the draft first used in the United States? Answer, of course, it was in the Civil War. Another one for you. Why did Abraham Lincoln stop the constitutional right of habeas corpus? Why did he take that human right away of habeas corpus? Answer, it was because in those border states with the South who had not seceded but had slaves still, such as Missouri and Kentucky, there were a lot of people called Copperheads, or Midwesterners sympathetic to the South. And so he wanted to snuff out that viewpoint in that speech, because in times of war, you need people not on the other side, but on your side. What was where was the treaty and the surrender, I should say, where was the surrender of Robert E. Lee? Where did that take place? So where did the... This is a tough one. Just like in class, my tongue gets tied, doesn't it? All right, so here we go. The question for you is as follows. Where did Robert E. Lee surrender to General Ulysses S. Grant at the end of the Civil War? You got it. Answer is at Appomattox Courthouse. Appomattox Courthouse. Now, because we didn't have time before school got put on pause to go through the 14th, 15th Amendment, KKK segregation, Jim Crow laws, we will start our next unit going through those items. You did some research, you shared out in your group, so you have an idea of what the 14th, 15th KKK segregation, Jim Crow laws are, but we will do that in detail beginning our next unit. So at the end of this week, and when I say that, I mean at the end of March 23rd through the 27th, so Friday the 27th, you will have a test over these items. So March 27th, can be looking on your Google Classroom for the test regarding the Civil War era. Okay, so the Civil War, that unit. Now remember, your unit goal page will also be due. Now hopefully you've already got a good start on that. I will be sending you an electronic copy of that unit goal page so that you fill out online and then send it in to me. Okay, so that will be a little bit different of format, same requirements, define all the terms, define the people, describe the pictures, and answer the questions to ponder, or the questions that are on that unit goal page. Okay, hope you guys are doing well, and hope that you've enjoyed a couple extra days off. Now it's time to get back to it and grind and catch back up to where we need to be, and hopefully we'll get to World War I by the end of this quarter. Hope you guys are doing well. Enjoy your day.